what often happens when people overdose, remember these are when the receptors are saturated with opiates and the brain is no longer being able to function due to the saturation of opiates, is an overdose. When clients are using heroin, it's not uncommon to see people just drifting off on the knob, that is called. That's fine, that's the state people are trying to find. There's a very fine line between that and an overdose. An overdose happens when there's a little part of the brain that says breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. It forgets to do its job. All of a sudden it's going breathe in, breathe out. It's just the brain is so stoned it's forgotten to breathe. So when you see movies like Pulp Fiction, all the other classics, when people are getting punched in the heart or adrenaline stabbed into the heart, not necessary. All that is missing is oxygen. The body is forgetting to breathe. The person is in respiratory distress. You can often pick this up when people are getting cyanotic or blue around the lips. Very difficult to find peripheral pulses. The body is in shutdown. It can't sustain itself without oxygen. The brain is too stoned to breathe. What do? If you catch this person early enough, it is a simple case of just putting oxygen back into the person. Mouth to mouth, preferably mask to mouth, or applying an oxygen mask if you're in a hospital situation. That is the initial process to do. No one's going to thank you if you apply Narcan, which takes out the opiates off those receptors, if it's not necessary. No one will thank you if you administer Narcan in an early state. The person is extremely stoned, which was their ambition for the day. You've given Narcan, they are immediately straight. It's almost instamatic. Often the person who is intoxicated on opiates will not remember that they were in an overdose situation, so they're not going to thank you for ruining their stone, their hard-earned cash that you've just taken away with one injection of Narcan. So really think about what you're going to do with an overdose. Try oxygen for a few minutes. If it's not working, Narcan. But oxygen is the first port of call. And then just monitoring the client to see if they get further progress into a respiratory distress, that then you might need to administer Narcan. What you can imagine with Narcan is these receptors are covered in opiates. The person is in overdose. It's like a pressure hose being introduced into the brain and blowing off all the opiates off the receptors and replacing it with a thin veneer of Narcan, which blocks that opiates that are still in the brain just floating around from attaching themselves to the receptors. So the person does not appear intoxicated at all, but however the opiates are still there. This is the tricky part. Narcan has a half-life of around 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes less, depending on each individual, and amount of receptors is a bit complicated. Basically it's got a very short half-life. Heroin has a long half-life, which is the effectiveness of the drug in the body, which could last 4 to 6 hours in heroin's case. So this is where we have a duty of care as health professionals. If you're adding Narcan, the person's going to want to go immediately. They'll say, right, I'm fine, thank you, not very much, I'm going. They're out of there. And the worst thing that they could possibly do, remembering now they're very, very straight and wanting some more drugs to get the feeling that they were hoping to get before they meet you. So they might take alcohol, benzodiazepines, or God forbid more opiates. So what they're doing is introducing more opiates onto these receptors. There's already the residual of that opiate in the system that is waiting to get back on those receptors once the Narcan is worn off. So 30 minutes have passed, all those opiates are rushed back onto those receptors. And there's a very good chance, if there was enough opiates in the system initially to cause overdose, within half an hour it'll still be enough opiates in the system, bang, they're back into overdose and they've left your care. Very dangerous situation. Obviously this can lead to death, especially if people have introduced more opiates or CNS depressants in that interim between administering Narcan and the re-onset of the initial opiates. So we've covered tolerance, which is the increasing of opiate receptors, withdrawal, which is the removing of opiates from those receptors, and they are creating chaos in the body and the brain. That's withdrawal. Overdose, a flooding of opiates into the system, where that little part of the brain is no longer saying breathe in, breathe out. Narcan, use it not as an initial treatment. See if oxygen will revive them. If they don't, naturally you've got to proceed to Narcan. They need monitoring for a minimum of 45 minutes to make sure that Narcan is withdrawn and not going to overdose again. It can be very hard to to convince someone to stay with you for 45 minutes if they're feeling very uncomfortable, but we do have a duty of care. If we are administering a drug, we know what's the consequences of not monitoring that person. Very important to monitor if you administer Narcan for a minimum of 45 minutes. Right, now we're going to the next topic, which will be vein care.